The state of play just a minute ago. How worried should we be about the economic headwinds that are coming our way? Petrol's up 20% on last year. They say inflation could be up to 2.5% by the end of this year, and wages aren't going up. There's a big threat to jobs. How worried are you?
Well, I think we need to unpick this and understand what's happening here. First point I want to pick you up on is regards to Scotland's economic performance. Now, Scotland's performance in terms of GDP is down 5.4% compared to the pre-pandemic level.
First 3 months is
down
1.9%.
Yeah, exactly.
1.5.
1.9 versus 1.5. You've got to look at that in the round compared to where we started in February 2020 before the pandemic. On that level, Scotland's down 5.4 and the rest of the UK is down 5.9. So we're actually, if you want to compare it where we're at today, we're actually performing better than the rest of the UK over the period of the pandemic compared to where we were before the pandemic kicked in.
What's happened over the past 3 months then?
Well, the GDP number, if you've been watching this closely, is a function of where the pandemic restrictions are, because clearly as different restrictions happen in different parts of the UK at different times, that has a follow-on effect through to the sectors that are most impacted by that, which is a follow-on effect through to GDP. Okay. So the two numbers are going like this, and if you look back over the piece, they're broadly in line, but if you want to compare number with number...
Are you worried? Are you worried?
No, this is important. This is important, because you kind of set this up, and you said it on the outset that Scotland's performing significantly worse. That's categorically absolutely not true. And if you look back over the period of the pandemic, Scotland has actually performed better in terms of GDP reduction than the rest of the UK. So it's really, really important to get that point nailed down. Second point I'm going to make is that clearly as restrictions lift, GDP will recover back to a level, and it's too early to know exactly where that level is going to be. We'll see over the next weeks and months as months' data coming out, as restrictions are lifted, where we get back to. Next point on inflation. Now, you talk about inflation could go as high as 2.5% on predictions. At the moment, inflation is at 2.1%. 2.1%. It's 0.1% over the target. Now, it should be at the target of 2%, and the target is 2%, and that's where it's supposed to be held at. 0.1% above that at the moment isn't a significant issue. Could it rise further? Absolutely it could, and I think there's an important discussion we need to have about the stresses on the economy and what that looks like going forward. But again, I wouldn't get too concerned at a 0.1% over target level at this particular point.
I'll tell you who will be concerned is people whose wages aren't going up and people who are losing their jobs. Well, what is your government's key economic priority? Is it, jobs, jobs, jobs? What's number one?
That's a very simplistic way to put it. The important thing, I think, is firstly to understand where we are with regards to coming out of the pandemic, and it's a multifaceted situation we've got at the moment. Some sectors are extremely hard hit and continue to be so as a consequence of the situation we find ourselves in due to restrictions, be that tourism, leisure, hospitality sectors that I've got responsibility for. I've been engaged very closely with them over the past weeks to understand in detail what we can do to support them. The £25 million tourism fund, for example, and other support we're putting into that sector. And we continue to call on the UK government to support with VAT and furlough and so on and so forth. Other sectors are in a different place. Other sectors are struggling to hire people. They're struggling to get materials. They're growing faster than they can cope with. So it's a very mixed picture. And as we emerge from the pandemic, I think understanding in detail what that looks like, what that landscape looks like, and to us to be able to respond to that. A lot of the solution to that is going to be about skills. It's going to be about being able to retrain people to move into the sectors that have those opportunities, to be able to take advantage of that. And a big part of it also, frankly, and it's a very, very important point, is for us to be able to look for opportunities where Scotland can step into shortage materials and be able to manufacture more of those here in Scotland.
What are you doing about that? What are you doing about that right now, about creating jobs and about maximising those opportunities? Right now, what's the...
Well, exactly. We're putting money, as I said, £25 million out of the Tourism Recovery Fund. We've got £100 million into the Green Jobs Fund. We've got the Transition Training Fund to move people from areas where they're challenged to areas where there are those opportunities. Because sectors I talk to, many of them have got real challenges getting a hold of the skills, getting hold of the labour force, and finding materials. It's something that's impacting the construction sector at the moment. Now, that does feed through into inflation, that's true, but a significant amount of work we're doing based on the success we had in setting up a PPE supply chain last year from scratch in Scotland. We're now working on a whole range of commodities where we see challenges in importation of materials to support businesses that are able to manufacture those commodities in Scotland to do exactly that. So there's a whole range of stuff going on. That's backed by investment from Scottish Enterprise and from the government to be able to support those businesses to step into the breach. A whole range of things happening on skills and on material supply.
Do you know what I hear a lot? I've been speaking a lot to people in business in the recent past and to business trade bodies. What I keep hearing from them is a desperate desire for your government to start cooperating with the Westminster government, to stop treating them as the enemy, to stop squabbling and to start working with them to boost the economy, to create jobs. They say they just don't have any feeling of security.
That's, well, in terms of cooperation, I meet with UK government ministers practically every week at the moment. We talk about a whole range of issues and look for opportunities where we can cooperate, be it the Jerry Grimstone, the investment minister, be it Greg Hands on trade, be it Amanda Soloway on science in the space sector. There's a whole range of those conversations going on all the time. So that cooperation, where it makes sense, happens. The problem we've got, and look at the Australia trade deal, where we were not involved in the process, we weren't told what was happening, we haven't seen the impact assessments. So it's a two-way street. We're very willing to cooperate, and I had a meeting with Graham Stewart as well just a few days ago on how we support exports together. That conversation, those conversations are happening. But as I say, as a two-way street, the UK government does need to give us and bring us into the conversations at an early stage.
What's the dialogue like? Is it constructive?
It's variable, to be honest, right? I mean, sometimes we have very good conversations about how we work together on specific projects. And as I say, we work with Jerry Grimstone, we managed to land some good inward investment into Scotland, working together on that. But in other areas, we've got a situation, frankly, where the conversations on the Australia trade deal were very, very disappointing because UK government didn't tell us what was happening. And I'll give you another prime example at the moment. We've been calling for the UK government to come to the table and talk to us about our Greenport proposals for 3 months now. It was supposed to have been announced in the budget by Rishi Sunak on the 2nd of March. They pulled the plug on that and didn't do it, and they've refused to meet with us for the last 3 months to talk about that. So there's something that business is crying out for. Scottish Government's ready to go. We've got our proposals on the internet. UK Government won't come and talk to us about it. So as I say, as a two-way street, we're very willing to talk to anybody where we can help to do the right thing for Scottish business. UK Government, I'm afraid, very often doesn't want to talk, doesn't give us information, doesn't want to engage.
Well, a lot of people within the business community will also suggest that the Scottish Government just doesn't feel private business, the importance of business in its bones, just doesn't really get it. Nicola Sturgeon's often criticised for that. In fact, she apologised last week, didn't she?
I think you're talking to the wrong person. I spent 30 years in business before I came into...
I'm talking about your government.
I'm talking about your government. I've got responsibility for business. I understand business. 30 years. I've run start-ups. I've done turnaround of businesses. I've bought and sold businesses. I've hired people. I know how to
That's fine, but the government is bigger than just you. And there is a criticism, particularly through the pandemic, that the interests of business have not been prioritised.
Well, I think, as I said, I'm the Minister for Business. I understand business. I talk to businesses every day.
So you don't think that's a fair criticism?
I come from a background where I understand that, and I communicate that message.
It's not a personal criticism of you.
I understand that, but the point I'm making is I communicate that message into the heart of government, what the priorities for business are, why it's important, why it's part of what we need to do to transform Scotland's economy and make sure that those messages are taken into, as I say, the heart of government.
All right. Ivan MkKee, listen, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you very much,
Pleasure
Martin.
to speak
Thank
to you.
you.
Now then,